On this vote, the yeas are 427, the nays are 1. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Welcome to Truman's Town Hall with your host, Matt Truman.
Hello. This is Matt Truman. Thank you for watching this episode. Thank you for sharing with a friend. Tonight, the votes have passed. The bill is sitting on President Trump's desk. It went through the House, went through the Senate, but when it went to the Senate, I just saw this not too long ago before I got on the broadcast. There's a little caveat I think you all should be aware of. I'm going to have to pull it up right quick. Stand by. Let me go to the X feed. There it is. This was shared by Luke Radowski. He's always a wealth of information. I enjoy following Mr. Radowski. You're not getting the Epstein disclosures. What Senator added, this language is there. As now Pam Bondi gets to choose what people see and don't see based on generalized terms called national security and ongoing investigations. So there it is. Terminate withholdings. So the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, may withhold or redact the segregable portions of records that contain personally identifiable information of victims or victims' personal and medical files and similar files, the disclosure of which would constitute a clearly unwarranted invasion of personal privacy. Check. Got it. Yes. We don't want to, the victims have been through enough. Nobody wants to see that. Got it. Depict or contain CSAM as defined under 18. There's that code, and prohibit under that code. Here's what he's highlighting. Would jeopardize an active federal investigation or ongoing prosecution, provided that such withholding is narrowly tailored and temporary. So that's the latest that is coming out that I've seen, and I wanted to report to you or talk about. Like, I'm a layman, dude. Okay, so I'm learning a lot of this, like everyone else. There's a lot of the podcasters out there that think they know everything and want to sway you to their side or whatever. No, I'm just putting out information that I think we all should understand, that I think we all should all this information should be available to all of us. What do you guys think? So earlier today, before the votes happened, Ro Khanna, Thomas Massey, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, right? They had a press conference. I'm going to play, I think it's 11 minutes of it. I hope you stick around to watch that. I think it's important to hear. They're standing with the victims, the survivors, right? They're standing with them. And to the vote today, everyone stood with them because they voted to send it out. But then there's this little caveat. So what are we actually going to get? Are we going to get the truth? All this stuff happened with Jeffrey Epstein back in, I think it was 2008, right? 2008 in Florida. The Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney General, used to be the Attorney General in Florida, but not during that time. No, she didn't come about until 2011. Yeah, so it was 2008 this happened. 2011, she became an Attorney General. And during that case, not the New York case or the federal case, but the federal and the state case that it came about, it was Alex Acosta was the U.S. I think he was, let's see. I wrote some of this down. He was the U.S. Attorney, Southern District of Florida. All this stuff comes out of Florida. So let's watch the. I want you guys to see what happened earlier today with Ro Khanna, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Thomas Massie, who are not in good standing with President Trump. But here's that.
Good morning. Today is the first day of real reckoning for the Epstein class. We're here to stand with forgotten and abandoned Americans against an Epstein class that had no regard for the rules or the laws. Look, this is one of the most horrific and disgusting corruption scandals in our country's history. You had Jeffrey Epstein, who literally set up an island of rape, a rape island. And you had rich and powerful men, some of the richest people in the world, who thought that they could hang out with bankers, buy off politicians, and abuse and rape America's girls with no consequence. Because survivors spoke up, because of their courage, the truth is finally going to come out. And when it comes out, this country is really going to have a moral reckoning. How did we allow this to happen? There should be no buildings named after people in this Epstein class. There should be no scholarships named after them. They shouldn't be enjoying the perks of being affiliated with corporations or universities or writing op-eds or being lionized. And many of the survivors will tell you some of these people still are celebrated in our society. That's disgusting. There needs to be accountability. I want to recognize first and foremost the survivors. They are the ones who made today possible. Many of you had forgotten about this issue, and frankly, for decades, we have not done enough about this issue. And it's only because of their advocacy, them coming here to the Capitol. They showed up here time and again, and on September 3rd, that the country started to pay attention. And I also want to thank the courage of two of my colleagues in particular. Both of them have suffered, as you know, extraordinary political consequences for what they did. One, my colleague, Congressman Thomas Massie. This would not have been possible if he hadn't led the discharge petition that got 218 signatures and is going to force a vote in the House of Representatives. And this would not have certainly been possible if it were not for the courage of Marjorie Taylor Greene. She signed the petition, and I would keep texting Thomas, is she going to drop off? Is she going to drop off? Because there was so much pressure against us, so much attacks against her. But she stood with the survivors. For Thomas or me, this has never been political. This is not about questions of Trump or Biden. This is a question of doing the right thing for survivors. We're going to get a vote today. I expect an overwhelming vote in the House of Representatives. And I don't want the DC swamp playing any games. They need to pass this in the Senate, and they should not amend it. President Trump has said he would sign the Epstein Transparency Act. It's going to get overwhelming support in the House. It should go straight to the Senate, and it should be signed. No amendments, no adding loopholes. Justice is long overdue. And I want to hand it over to my colleague, Representative Thomas Massie.
I want to start by thanking the survivors. I mean, they're giving everybody hope in this country. There are survivors of other sex crimes in this country wondering if they should come forward. They're clouded with shame and concerned that law enforcement will do nothing. And these survivors have stepped forth, taking that same risk, worried that they will be defamed themselves. They have been defamed for stepping forward, but we're going to get justice for them. That's going to happen today in the People's House. The founders set up our government with 3 branches and 2 branches of Congress. And I don't think it's any coincidence that this fight is being started and it's being won in the House of Representatives. I have people, other survivors of other sex crimes, who come to me and say, thank you. You give me hope. You give us hope. There is hope here. We fought the president, the attorney general, the FBI director, the speaker of the House, and the vice president to get this win. But they're on our side today, though. So let's give them some credit as well. They are finally on the side of justice. And as Rose said, don't muck it up in the Senate. Don't get too cute. We're all paying attention. If you want to add some additional protections for these survivors, go for it. But if you do anything that prevents any disclosure, you are not for the people and you are not part of this effort. Do not muck it up in the Senate. So with that, I just want to say I am hopeful too. I didn't know that we would succeed when Roe and I started this effort. Most discharge petitions never make it, maybe only 4%. So we had long odds, but we had some brave women on the Republican side. My colleague, Marjorie Taylor Greene, is one of them who's here with us today. You cannot even imagine the consequences that they have suffered. My colleague, Lauren Boebert, and my colleague, Nancy Mace, they stood so strong. They put their names on a document in here, and then they were pressured in ways that you cannot even imagine. And they stood strong. And that's why we're here today. And they didn't take us seriously over at the executive branch or in the Senate, because they always thought they could flip one of these women. They could convince them or cajole them or intimidate them into taking their names off of this petition. But they did not succeed. This is a victory for those women and women all over the country today, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. With that, I want to introduce my colleague, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Ro. I woke up this morning and I turned to my weather app to check the temperature, and it was 32 degrees. And my first thought was, hell has froze over. I want to speak goodness and love and hope into the women standing behind me and all of the other survivors whose names you don't even know, but stand with these women. They are survivors, and they are strong, and they are courageous, and they are daughters of God. They are not victims. These women have fought the most horrific fight that no woman should have to fight, and they did it by banding together and never giving up. And that's what we did by fighting so hard against the most powerful people in the world, even the President of the United States, in order to make this vote happen today. I was called a traitor by a man that I fought for 6 years for. And I gave him my loyalty for free. I won my first election without his endorsement, beating 8 men in a primary. And I've never owed him anything, but I fought for him for the policies and for America first. And he called me a traitor for standing with these women and refusing to take my name off the discharge petition. Let me tell you what a traitor is. A traitor is an American that serves foreign countries and themselves. A patriot is an American that serves the United States of America and Americans like the women standing behind me. And I want to tell you that this only became possible today because the American people whom we serve as representatives here in Congress demanded that this vote happen, and they put more pressure on every single elected politician in this city than has ever been put on them. And today you are going to see probably a unanimous vote in the House to release the Epstein files, but the real fight will happen after that. While I want to see every single name released so that these women don't have to live in fear and intimidation, which is something I've had a small taste of in just the past few days, just a small taste. They've been living it for years. But the real test will be, will the Department of Justice release the files? Or will it all remain tied up in investigations? Will the CIA release the files? Will a judge in New York release the information? That's information that needs to come out. And will the list of names that these women privately hold, and they hold it because of their fear in their heart of what would happen to them if they release it on their own, will that list of names come out? That's the real test. So I want to thank Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna for your bravery in doing something that is much needed in America, crossing the political aisle that has become bigger than the Grand Canyon in America. But these men crossed that aisle on behalf of these women. And that is more of what is needed today in America than ever in our history. So thank you so much. Who's next? Ro, I'll let you introduce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So that was the press conference that happened today before the vote. And you have to hand it to the survivors of all this, right? Now they're going to be nationally known. Many of them have already been nationally known. And this stuff's been happening since the early 2000s. The New York case with Epstein, right? We had the Florida case. Alex Acosta gave him a plea deal, gave Epstein a plea deal. Then he gets promoted to Trump's administration as the labor secretary. How does that happen? That's a question. I voted for Trump in the primaries for every election. So I'm not a never Trumper. I'm not a guy who was against Trump, right? Maybe I just didn't pay close attention. Like many of us, we haven't paid close attention. And now we're looking at this is coming up. They want to push this under the rug. I'm not a big fan of politicians, but they're the ones that do the work for us in government. So we have to vote for them. We have to hold them accountable. I heard somebody the other day say, "Oh, we don't hold Trump accountable." Why are you talking about? No, we hold all of our politicians accountable, right? Trump's doing a lot of great things for America, a lot of things that I don't believe that Kamala would have done. I'm not going to vote Democrat. I may not vote if there's not a good Republican, but I'm not going to vote Democrat. It's just not going to happen. Anyway, so the case in Florida happened. He got a plea deal. He spent like 13 months in prison or in jail and got out. And then they come around and they charged him they indicted him on July 8th, 2019, United States versus Jeffrey Epstein. One count of conspiracy to commit trafficking. You know what I'm talking about. I don't want to get kicked off YouTube, right? Or screw it. I don't care. Kick me off YouTube. I don't. Sex trafficking, right? One count of sex trafficking of minors. The alleged time period was 2002 to 2005, primarily involving activities in New York and Palm Beach, Florida. The allegations were Epstein and unnamed co-conspirators. Why are we doing unnamed co-conspirators? If there's co-conspirators, why weren't they indicted? Just a thought. The girls were paid to do certain things, sexual things. Victims were then paid additional money to recruit other underage. You guys know all this, right? We know the basics. So now that the files or the release of the files are sitting on Trump's desk, he'll sign them, right? He can't not sign them. He'll sign them and we'll get them. But will they be redacted? A lot of the information may be redacted, and we may still go down this rabbit hole, this continued rabbit hole. We need more transparency in government. We're not getting that. We're not getting that at all. Let's look at some other videos here. Oh, this is a report back in the day. So I'm in Ohio. And as many know, there's a fellow by the name of Leslie Wexner, who's all over Ohio State's campus. He's donated a ton of money to DeWine, Frank LaRose, all of our Republican politicians. He's donated a ton of money to. And he was the guy who made Epstein, essentially. You can go down that allegedly. I don't know, right? Who knows? So we're going to bring this up. This was a report back about a year ago. So let's play this.
Central Ohio businessman Les Wexner mentioned again in the latest round of unsealed documents related to the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. We do want to stress appearing in the documents does not mean someone is connected to anything illegal, but for the first time, Epstein victim Victoria Giuffre says she did have sex with Les Wexner. Jeffrey Epstein was a millionaire known for associating with high-profile celebrities and billionaires and politicians, accused of sexually exploiting dozens of girls for guests at his home. Epstein was arrested in 2019 and authorities say died by suicide in his cell. His former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, is currently serving a 20-year prison term for helping to recruit underage victims like Giuffre. In this latest round of documents, Giuffre tells an attorney she had sex with Wexner multiple times. The documents released are nearly 1,500 pages, with the name Wexner appearing 46 times. In a deposition from 2016, Giuffre is asked, "How many times did you have sex with Les Wexner?" Giuffre responds, "Multiple," before elaborating more than 3, possibly more than 5, but not more than 10. In 2019, Brad Edwards, a lawyer representing victims of Epstein, said he believed Wexner was not involved in the sexual proclivities of Mr. Epstein, saying, quote, "It's very seldom that many of the victims actually even met him or saw him. I do know that there's a lot of business ties to him, but other than receiving information about their business connection, I don't have any information to believe otherwise." NBC4 reached out to Wexner's spokesperson, who directed us to court documents from 2020, in which Wexner's lawyers wrote, "Mr. Wexner was unaware of and was never a participant in any of the abhorrent behavior engaged in by Epstein against Epstein's victims, that Mr. Wexner has never met Ms. Giuffre, and that any claims to the contrary were not true." At one point, Epstein worked as Wexner's personal finance manager. A document on file in Franklin County shows Epstein was given power of attorney over much of Wexner's financial affairs in 1991. Following Epstein's 2019 arrest, Wexner released a statement through his business, L Brands, stating he had severed any ties to Epstein more than a dozen years earlier. Now, to read more about the latest release of the documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, you can go to NBC4i.com.
All right. There's that. So, make of it what you will. That's Ohio politics right there. And now, here's what Ohio politics is doing now. So, Vivek Ramaswamy, he's running for governor as the Republican. There was another lady running as a Republican too, but she got pushed out. There's a lot of folks endorsing him already. We're talking the Republican Party of Ohio. I think it's the head of that's Alex Trilafonte, something like that. All right. I'm not going to get it all right. He's got a wild last name. They've already endorsed Vivek before the primary, and he's traveling around. He was just with Phil Plummer in Dayton. Phil Plummer is one of our state representatives. He was a former sheriff in Montgomery County, Ohio. And Phil Plummer endorsed a rhino who is completely, she's an idiot when it comes to government. I'll just say that. I'll just be blunt and say that. She's an idiot when it comes to government. He endorsed her, a rhino. I know for sure because she was talking about gay pride parades and everything at the council meeting. She's a Huber Heights counselor. She lost, thankfully. But he also endorsed a Democrat. Phil Plummer endorsed a Democrat, the former mayor of Trotwood, as a Montgomery County commissioner who had switched to Republican. So now she's cool. But then once she was elected, and then she was out at the gay pride parade, just waving to everybody and loving it. That's who Phil Plummer endorses. And he was out with Vivek Ramaswamy campaigning over the weekend in Dayton. So we get that. Plus the H-1Bs and all that. That's a totally different story. One person I really enjoyed listening to is Whitney Webb. I'm sure you guys have heard of her. She was on the Jimmy Dore show, who I saw Jimmy Dore live at the Funny Bone in Dayton. It was Jimmy Dore he was hilarious. His wife opened for him. I took my mother and a friend of mine. We went and watched that show. It was great. Jimmy Dore, shout out to you. Here's this. I love comedy, by the way. Jimmy Dore and Whitney Webb.
About that client list they had of the girl that slept with John F. Kennedy, and
Yes.
and the FBI's like, we don't need this. We're just gonna like light it on fire and get rid of it.
Yeah.
So the FBI is not there to investigate and hold the powerful to account. They are there to cover up for their crimes and step on you, basically, the little people.
Okay, so
So they're not going to release it, I
right.
guess is my point. Because, and I don't think Ghislaine Maxwell's going to talk either, because she went from this dingy prison that Epstein, quote unquote, killed himself in. But now she's in country club prison in Florida doing yoga and having vegan Thanksgiving dinners and apparently having a grand old time.
Why do you think they didn't kill her, but they killed him?
You mean Epstein?
Yes, they killed Epstein.
Yeah,
Everyone knows they did.
I think Ghislaine Maxwell, after what happened to not just her father, but also Epstein, was willing to keep her mouth shut to stay alive.
And he wasn't?
I think he was more of a liability because he's not just involved in sex trafficking, right? He's involved in major financial crimes and a lot of other stuff.
Okay.
Ghislaine Maxwell is definitely much more focused on sex trafficking, though it seems like the whole Maxwell family or her siblings were very much involved in some crazy stuff with Microsoft and Bill Gates that I talk about in the book.
What's that?
So you may have heard the mainstream media narrative that Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Gates didn't meet each other until 2011,
Yes.
but that is a bunch of hooey because there's mainstream media articles from 2001 saying that Jeffrey Epstein made all his money from his business connections to three men. And those three men are in this article, Leslie Wexner, Donald Trump, and the third one is Bill Gates. So how did Jeffrey Epstein make a bunch of money with Bill Gates if he didn't by 2001, if he didn't meet him until for another decade? Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? And then you start looking at this whole relationship and it's very clear that there's no way that's true. A really good example is a woman named Melanie Walker, who was apparently supplied by Epstein to service Prince Andrew at Zorro Ranch on a couple of occasions. She was recruited by Epstein in 1992, allegedly as a Victoria's Secret model, but there's no evidence she ever actually modeled for Victoria's Secret. He apparently was funding her education, hires her as his science advisor in the late 90s. And then a couple years after that, in the early 2000s, she becomes the science advisor to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Oh.
So if you're going to apply to be science advisor to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and your CV says, my most recent experience is being the science advisor to Jeffrey Epstein, and you're Bill Gates hiring your top science advisor, you would have to know who Jeffrey Epstein is and what kind of science he's into. Right?
Yes. So Bill Gates in deep with Jeffrey Epstein and lying about it.
Yeah, but I think part of it's not just to protect Bill Gates, it's to protect Microsoft, because you also in the 90s have Jeffrey Epstein flying around on planes to official Microsoft functions in Russia, apparently giving women to the chief technology officer who was very close to Bill Gates named Nathan Myhrvold, a relationship with another top Microsoft executive named Linda Stone, who hired one of Epstein's entourage to be her secretary. All sorts of stuff going on there with Epstein and Microsoft. And it's not just Epstein, as I mentioned earlier, the Maxwells. Ghislaine Maxwell was very much invested in a company that was run by her twin sisters, Christine and Isabel, called the McKinley Group or Magellan. It was one of the first search engines. They made an early deal with Microsoft in 1995. And it was Isabel Maxwell that made that deal specifically with Microsoft. There's this very weird article in The Guardian from 2000 where Isabel Maxwell, and I read for the book, I read maybe 30 interviews Isabel Maxwell has given over the years. And this is the only one where a journalist says she started purring and speaking in a fake Southern accent. And she does that when she talks about Bill Gates. Isn't that weird?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is weird.
Yeah. It's weird. So, she must have known him pretty well. I wish I had the article in front of me so I could quote from it. It's very odd. But the other thing too is that at that time she was subsequently running a different company that was very much tied to the Israeli National Security State and the IDF, and that company was hemorrhaging money and its IPO was going to collapse. But suddenly come the two Microsoft co-founders, Paul Allen and Bill Gates, and they pour a bunch of money into ComTouch and basically rescue it and then give it more money, even though it's never made a profit and doesn't really have a real product. And according to Isabel Maxwell, they put it on the map. So there's a lot of associations between the Maxwell family and Microsoft that should be looked at. And same with Epstein. They haven't been.
All right. So there's that. Whitney Webb, Jimmy Dore. Now, that's pretty much all I'm going to talk about the Epstein stuff tonight. I think we dove into it quite a bit. And a lot of you already know a lot of this information. I'm just hopefully bringing some new things, right? Just maybe a little tidbit here or there. There was an article I read the other day. It said something about rich snipers. So rich people were paying $90,000 to go over to Sarajevo and snipe people that were running on the street. I remember that very well because I just had a young son and I took him on a walk, came back, the news was on, and one of our stealth bombers had gotten shot down over Kosovo. Maybe you guys remember that. I don't know. That's the first and probably the only stealth bomber that was shot down. So I guess that sticks out in my mind. But yeah, there were people that were paying to go murder other innocents, rich people paying to murder innocent. It's wild. You get a bunch of money, you have all the power. What else are you going to? I'm going to go murder some. We're living in strange times. Did you guys see that? Anyway, I know I'm just talking out of my hat here, but I'm going to play this video from, I think it's the Bound Report. I want you to check it out.
In the hellish theater of the 1992 to 1996 siege of Sarajevo, where Bosnian Serb forces encircled the city, the longest urban siege in the history of modern warfare, a grotesque sideshow allegedly unfolded. Reportedly, wealthy foreigners, Italians, Americans, Russians, Canadians, allegedly shelled out 70,000 to 88,000 euros per jaunt, flying from Trieste to Belgrade, then helicoptered to sniper nests in the hills above Sarajevo. Guided by Serbian state security operatives like the convicted war criminal Jovica Stanisic, they took aim at unarmed women, men, and children, scurrying along Sniper Alley with premium fees tacked on for the trophy of a child's kill.
Among the evidence is testimony from a former Bosnian military intelligence officer who documented early reports of so-called war safaris that came from a Serbian prisoner of war.
Of course, there are documents about this. I remember at least 3 of them. One is the record of his interrogation, another is the record of the follow-up interrogation, and the third is an analysis I prepared, which explained the phenomenon of the war safari, a term mentioned for the first time on the Sarajevo battlefield.
Bosnian authorities say they launched an investigation 3 years ago, but it appears to have stalled.
Eyewitness accounts from the era resurfaced in Italian prosecutor Alessandro Gobi's ongoing Milan investigation, peeling back layers of complicity that reek of untouched privilege. Former U.S. Marine John Jordan, testifying at The Hague in 2007, described the deliberate targeting of the vulnerable. Quote, "If a family was walking, it would be the youngest," end quote. Bosnian intelligence officer Edin Subasic, capturing a Serbian soldier in 1993, uncovered the operation's logistics, weekend rotations, spotters calling shots, victims priced like quarry at auction. Italian military intelligence confirmed the trips in 1994 after Subasic's tip-off, halting them within months, yet no prosecutions followed until now, with journalist Ezio Gavazzini's 17-page dossier naming 5 Italian suspects and demanding accountability for this peak of depravity.
What we can say is that there were certainly civilians who shot at the people, at the population of Sarajevo, paying for this kind of activity.
U.S. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna has also launched a parallel probe into American involvement, vowing to drag any implicated elites into the light. The Sarajevo abomination didn't slither from the ether. It's a venomous thread where the powerful have long stalked the powerless for sport, their wealth a license to dehumanize. Throughout the 20th century, persistent rumors allege that European royalty and high aristocracy participated in clandestine human hunts on private estates, treating poachers, trespassers, or abducted locals as live quarry in macabre rituals echoing medieval traditions. Similar claims surfaced in 1950s Bavaria, where a minor Habsburg prince was said to have hosted weekend Jagdspiel on sealed forest tracks, with East German refugees allegedly released at dawn for pursuit by rifle-armed guests. Only disappearances and no prosecutions or verified bodies ever materialized. Yet the pattern, remote land, absolute privacy, and elite impunity, mirrors the Sarajevo safaris, suggesting a continuum of aristocratic blood sport shielded by wealth and silence. The elite's boredom births monsters, and the vulnerable have become mere moving targets in an unending safari of the damned. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
There it is. Isn't that crazy? That's wild. So I just listened to Sean Ryan's show with Chase Hughes. He titled it, what did he title it? The MK Ultra. Real MK Ultra, right? Check it out. It's great. He essentially says that you have more in common with your neighbor who might be a Democrat than the billionaires that run the world. Agree. You have to agree, because we're out here, we're just regular folk dealing with regular issues. The billionaires, I don't know. All right, I'm going to end this broadcast with one last report. It's out of Palestine. It's out of Israel. And it's so Israel, the report is, it's from the AP, Associated Press, 100 since the start of the war, the Israeli war after October 7th, which was a horrible, horrible day, right? I don't want to see anybody get killed. I don't want to see anybody get abused. I don't like to see bad things happen to people. I want everybody to live. This is America. We should all be living great, but we're not. But anyway, throughout the world, there's this type of stuff. So I'm going to bring it up. This is an AP report. Palestinian deaths in Israel custody have surged. A prison guard describes rampant abuse. They'll explain it to you, but like over 100 prisoners have died in Israeli custody. And I know there's a lot of stories in my hometown where there's prisoners dying in like Montgomery County jails. Shouldn't happen at all. Here we go.
I'm standing outside a house on the edge of the Nur Shams refugee camp in the occupied West Bank, where this family says that their relative died in an Israeli prison at the end of last year. They said Israel's army detained him from here. He was healthy at the time, and he died within their custody within a week. Now, he is just one of nearly 100 Palestinians who have died in Israeli detention centers since Israel's war with Hamas began more than 2 years ago.
He was in a very good health. When we received the news of his death, we were shocked because he was actually in a good health.
Now, these findings are from Physicians for Human Rights Israel. It is new data, and they say that there has been a massive spike in the number of Palestinians who have died in Israeli military detention centers, as well as civilian prisons. By comparison, in the 10 years prior before the war, less than 30 Palestinians died in Israeli custody, although far fewer people had been rounded up.
And one of our key findings that a lot of these people died directly from violence and beaten and tortured, or by medical neglect and denial of medical care.
Now, the AP has spoken to some people who have worked in these prisons, including a prison guard who said that he himself beat prisoners. The guard spoke to the AP on condition of anonymity for fear of reprisal. He said the prison that he worked at was dubbed Graveyard. Guards were told to reduce the number of deaths. He said that one day he showed up to work and there was a Palestinian dead in the yard. And he said people rarely flinched. It was business as usual. The prison service and Israel's army declined to comment on the number of people who have died in its custody. The army, however, said it is aware of cases of detainee deaths in its custody. It said any abuse of detainees is strictly prohibited and complaints of inappropriate conduct as well as inadequate conditions are assessed. Where appropriate, disciplinary measures are taken, including opening criminal investigation.
There it is. All right. So when I flip back from videos, you see soldiers, army. So, well, that was my group training it up to go to Afghanistan in 2012. That's what that is. Thought I'd explain that after coming back from that. We didn't torture anybody. Actually helped a lot of people, and some people shot at us, which is like, really? Why are you shooting at us? They learned. I'm Matt Truman. This is Truman's Town Hall. I'll see you next Tuesday. Be here or be nowhere. Also, Sunday night, we do a Bible study with a bunch of Protestant pastors. I'm a Catholic dude. I talk with Protestant pastors. Mostly, we agree on things, but sometimes you have to listen back to the last one we did. We didn't agree on much, but, well, we agreed on a lot, but not a whole lot. And it got kind of heated. There were names thrown at it. It was pretty wild. So we do that 8:45 p.m., 9 o'clock on Sunday, Bible study. And I'll be back here on Tuesday. See you then.